Good morning, Magic the Gathering fans. I'm glad you're here. I rolled out the Old School Championship GP Vegas 2019 playmat because today on the channel we're going to do a deck tech and discussion about the White Weenie deck piloted by Tom Chanpheng at the 1996 inaugural World Championships of Magic the Gathering. This is the deck list that Tom played at that tournament. And for winning that tournament, Tom was awarded a 1996 World Championship card trophy. It was a card that was made for him and sealed in an acrylic case and then awarded to him as being the trophy winner. I made a video about this card a couple of months ago on my channel when I talked about the top 3 most expensive cards ever sold in Magic the Gathering. This is one of the top 3 cards, not this actual piece of paper. This is just a printout of it, but it does exist. It's a real card. It's kind of sealed in acrylic, so I don't know if it can ever be played in a deck or not. But hypothetically, if you could, its power and toughness, it's a legend card, would be equal to your opponent's life total. If you're the 96 world champion and you own this card and it's in your deck, you can tutor for it, put it on the top of your library, and play the card for its casting cost of Wooburg, which is white, blue, black, red, and green. So today's video, we're going to talk about the deck list here. We're actually going to use actual Magic cards. I'm not going to use the digital versions. If you've watched my previous videos, you know I've opened up Fallen Empires booster packs. I've opened up Ice Age booster packs, and I collect 4th edition cards. So a lot of these cards are just in my collection, and I decided, you know what, I can actually make this deck on a budget as well. This deck could be purchased and assembled for less than $200, guarantee you. But back in the day, in 1996, the tournament rules were pretty simple. You had to have 60 cards in your deck. They could only be from the 6 most recent standard legal sets at the time, which were Ice Age, Alliances, 4th edition, Chronicles, Homelands, and Fallen Empires. Those were the only sets you could use to make the deck. So Tom did that. I'm going to go through all the cards, talk about them individually, and then make some other comparisons at the very end. But so here's the deck list. The first card is a creature. It's an Order of Leechburr from Fallen Empires. It costs 2 white. It's a 2/1, and it has protection from black, and it can do some other things like pump itself 1 until the end of the turn, or gain first strike until the end of turn. So pretty useful. Art is by Brian Wackwitz. We saw Brian most recently at MagicCon Chicago. We had him sign some Order of Leapers for us. There's also another version of the art by Brian and another version of the art, I think, by Randy Alspeth Faith. The second card in the deck is Order of White Shield. This was printed in Ice Age. It's very similar to the Order of Leetbird. Costs 2 white, is 2/1, gains protection from black, and first strike, and +1/+0 to end of turn. So functionally very similar to the other order. Then Tom included 2 copies of Phyrexian Warbeast, which was an artifact from Alliances that was printed in 96. 3 colorless, it's a 3/4. When it leaves play, you sacrifice a land and it deals 1 damage to you. Then we have Savannah Lions. Savannah Lions was a powerhouse back in the day, included in every White Weenie deck, because for 1 white mana, you got a 2/1 vanilla creature on the board. Let's move that over here. Just keep the creatures at the top. Then we have Sarah Angel. Sarah Angel is a 4/4 flyer that does not tap when she attacks. So technically she has Vigilance, which came out later in Magic's history. And she costs 3 colorless and 2 white, and was just a great flyer. Then we have 4 copies of White Knight, which is also a 2 white casting cost card. This is a 2/2 white, protection from black, and first strike. These 3 cards are all from the 4th edition. Savannah Lions, Sarah Angel, and White Knight were all printed in Alpha, Beta, Unlimited, Revised, and 4th edition. All right, now into some of the sorcery spells. Tom included 1 copy of Armageddon to get rid of lands. That was from 4th edition. 1 copy of Balance to equalize lands in play, cards in hand, creatures in play. That's also from 4th edition. If you watch a lot of my Alpha 40 videos, you know we play Balance in Alpha 40. Some instants, there is 4 copies of Disenchant. Disenchant was recently printed in Ice Age with this artwork by Brian Snowdy. So I'm going to include these 4 copies of disenchant in my deck. Tom may have included the 4th edition disenchants that had the art by Amy Weber, but let me know in the comments if you know, or if you're Tom and you want to specify which version of art you used in your deck. That'd be awesome. Next card is an instant as well. It's called Reinforcements. It costs 1 white, printed in Alliances. Lets you put up to 3 target creature cards from your graveyard onto the top of your library in any order. And then Reprisal is also an instant from Alliances. Costs 1 colorless, 1 white. You bury target creature with power 4 or greater, so you could use that to hit Urnam de Jin. There were 2 artworks. This is the Red Dragon artwork. Then we have some more removal. We have 4 copies of Swords to Plowshares. Swords to Plowshares remove target creature from the game. These were the 4th edition Swords to Plowshares, which are a little cheaper than the Ice Age Swords to Plowshares by Kaya Foglio. So I'm not sure which version Tom was using, but I'm gonna use the Jeff Mangus 4th edition art and save the Ice Age arts to get signed by Kaya Foglio at the next MagicCon. And then there were 4 more spells in the deck that were sort of a helpful. One was Sleight of Mind. This one also was included sort of by mistake because he was missing 4 copies of Adarkar Wastes in his deck list. But ideally, Sleight of Mind changes the text of target spell or permanent by replacing all instants of 1 color word with another. For example, you may change counters black spell to counters blue spell. This you could play on your Order of Leapers or your White Knights and gain protection from a different color if you'd like. But I'll put Sleight of Mind right there and talk about it in a second when we get to Adarkar Wastes. Land Tax was a great card, originally printed in Legends. You can pick these up for $50 to $75. This is a 4th edition card, which was legal in 1996. For 1 white, you cast this enchantment, and during your upkeep, if an opponent controls more land than you, you may search your library and remove up to 3 basic lands, put them into your hand, and then you reshuffle your library afterward. That's useful with these cards here. We have Lodestone Bauble, 0 casting cost artifact from Alliances. You pay 1 colorless and sacrifice the Bauble to put up to 4 target basic lands from any player's graveyard on top of his or her library in any order. That player draws a card at the next turn's upkeep. So Bauble, if you cast it on your turn, put the lands on your library. On your opponent's turn, you get to basically draw a land, an extra land that turn. Zuran Orb is an artifact, 0 casting cost from Ice Age, and for 0 mana, you sacrifice a land to gain up to 2 life. So this could be useful if you're playing the Phyrexian Warbeast. When Warbeast leaves play, you sacrifice a land, and it does damage, but you gain 2 off the Zuran Orb, so it prevents losing any life from Phyrexian Warbeast. Here is the mana base in the deck. There are 24 mana sources, and mistakenly they're all white or colorless mana sources. There's a famous story of how Tom meant to include 4 copies of Adarkar Wastes in this deck, but forgot and had to include basic lands as part of the rules of the tournament. So Tom included basic plains and instead of including any basic islands. The first land was Kelderin Outpost from Alliances. This is a really awesome card. Art is by Jeff Mangus. When Kelderin Outpost comes into play, you sacrifice plains or bury Kelderin Outpost. So if you're also playing Zuran Orb, you could sacrifice a plains, gain 2 life, and cast Kelderin Outpost. That's pretty awesome. Then he included 4 copies of Mishra's Factory, which produces colorless mana. Art is by Phil and Kaya Foglio. This is the 4th edition copy. You pay a colorless and create a 2/2 assembly worker token, creature token. The Kelderin Outpost also pumps out 1/1 soldier tokens if you want to get into the soldier battle. Maybe after you've balanced and wiped out all the creatures in play, you could turn all your artifact lands into creature tokens. Tom had to include 15 copies of basic planes. I'm assuming he meant to include 11 copies plus 4 Adarkar Wastes. I'm going to use the Ice Age planes that came out with Christopher Rush art on them. 5 copies of each artwork. Again, I'm not sure which planes Tom was including. He could have included the 4th edition planes, but we're going to go with the Ice Age planes. I think they just look beautiful. And I think last but not least, there's 4 copies of Strip Mine, which tap for colorless or take out your opponent's lands. We'll put those right there. So if I were to include, if I had to include basic islands, there's a good chance that your opponent was also running 4 Strip Mines that would have maybe taken out your islands, thinking that you're on mono white, splashing blue for something crazy, and Force of Will or something, which would have been legal in the tournament. So I think perhaps including the planes was a good idea. The sideboard, let's touch on the sideboard real quick. Here is the sideboard list. Tom included 2 copies of Orenson's Aura from Ice Age. It costs 2 colorless and a white. Sacrifice an enchantment to destroy target enchantment, and for 3 colorless and 2 blue, you counter target enchantment. And again, without any blue sources, this card, the second ability on this card is useless. So we might try to improve upon that in our deck tech today. Tom included 1 copy of Black Vice to combat control decks, 4 copies of Divine Offering to combat artifact decks. This destroys target artifact. 1 copy of Energy Storm from Ice Age. Divine Offering is from Chronicles. Energy Storm is from Ice Age. It costs 1 colorless, 1 white. Cumulative upkeep of 1, and it damage dealt by instants, interrupts, and sorceries is reduced to 0. 1 copy of Exile from Alliances. This removes target non-white attacking creature from the game, and you gain life equal to that creature's toughness. Another copy of Keldrin Outpost to help you generate 1/1 white creature tokens. Another copy of Reprisal. This is the Green Lizard version by Randy Asplund Faith from Alliances. Costs 1 and a white, and you bury target creature with power 4 or greater. 2 copies of Serrated Arrows from Homelands, which is a very popular card at the time. For 4 colorless mana, when Serrated Arrows comes into play, you put 3 arrowhead counters on it, kind of like a Triskelion. And then during your upkeep, you bury a Serrated Arrows if there are no arrowhead counters on it, and you tap it to remove an arrowhead counter from Serrated Arrows and put -1/-1 counter on target creature. So if your opponent has a 1/1, 2/2, or 3/3 creature, you could tap Serrated Arrows and remove the tokens to take out their creatures. Another copy of Sleight of Mind, which was useless in this deck without any blue mana sources, but could have in theory changed the text of 1 card to a different color. And lastly, Spirit Link, which was from 4th edition. For 1 white, you gain 1 life for every 1 damage target creature deals. So you could put it on your creature and gain life every time it deals damage. You could also put it on your opponent's creature and nullify any damage that it dealt when it gets through. All right, so then we talked about Sleight of Mind was useless in this deck without Adarkar Wastes. So I think to improve on this deck, I am going to include 4 copies of Adarkar Wastes. And I will take out 4 copies of basic planes just so that we keep our mana base the same. Here are 4 copies of Adarkar Wastes. This is one of my favorite cards. It's from Ice Age, art by Mike Rabe. It is a land. You tap it for 1 colorless. You can tap it for 1 white, but it deals the damage to you. And you can tap it for a blue, and it deals damage to you. So kind of like a pain land. It replaces all the dual lands, which were not legal in this tournament. So that makes it kind of essential for any formats that don't include dual lands. It's like the next generation of dual lands, first generation of pain lands. Very, very cool card. It trades for about $10 to $12. Keldrin Outpost is probably the most expensive card next to land tax. Keldrin Outpost is probably $13, $14, $15, and land tax in 4th edition is $25. Like I said, Adarkar Wastes and Keldrin Outpost, but Adarkar Wastes is one of my favorite cards. I collected a lot of the artist proofs from Mike Rabe back in the day. I had another video, I will put it in the description below if you want to see my Mike Rabe artist proof collection. It was also reprinted in the World Championship editions. A couple players like Mike the Hammer used Adarkar Wastes in their main deck, and it was reprinted with gold borders. I did another video too on my channel about World Championship gold bordered cards. If you want to see that video, I'll put that link in the description as well. A lot of the cards that won these World Championship tournaments were commemorated and printed with gold borders, and the players kind of facsimile signature in gold to commemorate their placing in the top 8 of those tournaments. And they made those sets for 8 years, I believe, from 1996 to 2004. They made these commemorative edition World Championship cards. All right, so that's the video. Let me know in the comments if you've played this white weenie deck before or a version of it. Let me know what changes you would make to this deck if you want to improve upon it. I'm gonna give it a ride at my local meetup and see how it does. I find it interesting that it doesn't run any dual lands, so it's a budget deck. If you want to play it for less than $200, you can certainly do that. I recommend it. Appreciate all the likes, follows, and subscriptions. If you want to see more videos like this on the channel, stay tuned. I'll pump some more up for you. Have a great day, everybody. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you in the next video.